I love the smell of new comics on Wednesdays. Welcome to Pull List. I'm Lewis, aka Spider-Man 1991, and this is the video where I talk about all the comic books that I've read this week. This week's comics came out on March 28th, 2018. There is one comic though that came out last week that I didn't get, that my shop didn't have, so I had to wait till it came in this week. All right, so here, and as usual, I always go through my comics from the worst to best. So by the end of this video, you'll know my pick of the week. So let's get started. Invincible Iron Man number 598. Riri Williams gets her armor back, and she finds a new lead on Tony Stark. However, it turns out it's a fake lead programmed by actual Tony Stark. And also, we finally get meanwhile, Dr. Doom, we finally get the confirmation that he is going to be a father. So, yeah. Reason why this is so low on my list is because, and this is just a general problem that I have with Brian Michael Bendis' writing, is that his plot, whenever he does a long arc, it goes so slow. Like, the pacing is very slow, and this issue where we pretty much had a teaser set up that, oh hey, Riri could find Tony, but then, you know, it's fake. It's just basically treading water at this point. And again, he's clearly just treading water until finally we get to Iron Man 600, which will be his final issue and the end of all his Iron Man run. To be honest, you don't really need to read this. You can just probably wait till 600 because I don't think anything's going to happen until that issue. Alright, next up, Wonder Woman number 43. Steve Trevor trains Diana's twin brother Jason. Also, Diana interrogates the female Furies, and she doesn't use the lasso of truth on them. She actually, well, let's just say she would probably this is probably a method that would be described as pulling a Batman. And also, Darkseid moves forward to this plan. And I will say this, the thing that I really enjoyed was how the reveal that Darkseid wasn't building a portal to somewhere, but actually some sort of portal to bring something to him. In this case, it was the entire floor of the Argus complex that contained all the artifacts that he needed for his master plan. And we did get a cool teaser at the end for Darkseid vs. Wonder Woman round 2. But the reason why this is still, Wonder Woman is still low on my list, is because we're not really getting anywhere with all the things that we're teasing. Like, we still keep coming back to Jason's armor, like where did he get it, who were these 7 monoliths that gave it to him, and stuff. And I don't know, whenever it keeps teasing the larger arc, like, oh hey, this is probably gonna happen, and it felt very distracting since we already established that last issue and nothing moved forward with it at all. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 41. Hal Jordan is able to knock out General Zod. That is impressive. And also, and the reason I think it's impressive is because this was a planet that had not one but 2 yellow suns. So that's pretty much more proof that we need that Hal Jordan is the greatest Green Lantern ever. Unfortunately, though, his victory is short-lived when the Guardians of the Universe and John Stewart show up, and the Guardians demand Hal releases General Zod. Because technically, when Kyle and Hal went to Zod's planet to investigate what was going on, they kind of started things themselves, and they didn't have any just cause for arresting Zod. And that's basically the Guardians order Hal and the other Green Lanterns to leave immediately. And of course, and an interesting turn of events, John Stewart actually agrees with what the Guardians had to say. Then this issue closes with a great conversation between Hal and John about what the Guardians did, and John pretty much realizes that, you know, these aren't the same Guardians that we had before, but if we keep acting like the way we did earlier, then we could probably push them into those old habits. And that's not something he wants to risk. And we also do get a little teaser for General Zod that apparently the whole time during his fight with Hal Jordan, he had the Eradicator pretty much copy all the data off of Kyle Rayner's ring of all the information of other planets and galaxies and stuff. Main reason why I kind of like this issue is just because it showed off why Hal is probably the best Green Lantern ever. Also, the ending scene with Hal and John really kind of made me think that I think that Hal Jordan should deserve his own title, but John Stewart is pretty much in the Green Lantern Corps title by himself. Like, I think having, like, Hal and John are great characters, but the problem with them sharing a title is that you can't really explore either one, and that's why I think we should have one Green Lantern title focused on Hal and another one focused on John. Daredevil number 600. Daredevil gets the other New York City heroes together. Well, not all of them, mostly just the street-level heroes from like the Defenders and Spider-Man, in order to capture the Kingpin when he meets with his former former constituents, you know, the other crime bosses, the Owl, Hammerhead, Diamondback, and Blockhead. However, though, this turns out to be a sting, not just a sting operation, not just for the heroes, but for the villains as well. Basically, when Daredevil sees that the other crime lords are starting to turn against each other, the heroes interfere, then suddenly the NYPD shows up and arrests everyone because when Fisk became mayor, he instituted an anti-vigilante law. Of course, Daredevil's the only one to get out in time. And when Daredevil goes and confronts Fisk, Fisk is getting ready to fight him, but Daredevil refuses to lay a hand on him, which unfortunately leads to Fisk sucker punching him and Daredevil getting arrested. Then we cut to Fisk making a big statement at this rally for him, and suddenly he gets attacked by hand ninjas and he's sent to the hospital in critical condition. And apparently it turns out that with Fisk incapacitated, there is actually a law that appoints the deputy mayor in charge, that makes the deputy mayor the interim mayor until Fisk gets better. The deputy mayor is none other than Matt Murdock. Okay, while it was a nice little surprise to see the hand ninjas come back, this arc, I remember earlier in the whole Mayor Fisk arc, they were pretty much they devoted like a number of pages to like say that just because Matt is deputy mayor doesn't mean if Fisk's taken out, he gets to be in charge. Like, that's not how it works. And just having this in effect where it's like, oh hey, that was actually an old law that was never taken out and Fisk intended to, but he never did. It just feels too much like a Deus Ex Machina. Like, I mean, sometimes Deus Ex Machinas can be good, but other times when they're just so obvious like this, it feels like very random. Although it does put Matt in an interesting predicament. Now that he's, as Daredevil, arrested, how's he going to get out of there as Matt Murdock to become the new mayor? Although I do give this book some credit because since it's the 600th issue, it does have a backup story that does feature Foggy Nelson, and it's a very good story. It pretty much shows how much of an important figure Foggy Nelson is to Daredevil's life. And that's why it's on here. Honestly, though, if you are a Daredevil fan, you don't really need to read this. It's about since the 600th issue, it's about $6, but it's not worth that at all. I would say if you know someone who already bought this comic, just borrow it from them if you want to read it. Otherwise, just skip it. Okay, well, this is a title that I'm surprised is really low on the list. Detective Comics number 977. In Future Tim's timeline, we learned that the colony attacked the Batcave when Batman started to set up the Brother Eye satellite. And when the colony attacked, Kate Kane was the one who killed Batman. And the person that's telling the story is actually Ulysses Armstrong, who's telling it to the present day Tim Drake, current Red Robin. And Armstrong is telling Tim all this because he wants to work together with him to kind of defeat the colony and everything. But Tim says like he'll consider his offer, but really he's not. But the truth is he's not. He actually goes and talks to Bruce about it and says like, you know, Bruce, I'm not going to push you to rebuild the Knights program or anything. And they start to sort of rebuild their relationship. However, at the same time, Ulysses is able to use the Brother Eye program to take control of the armor of two colony soldiers and uses them to rob a store in Gotham, which attracts the attention of Batman and Red Robin. And that's basically where the issue ends. Alright, while revisiting the future Tim Drake's timeline was kind of fun, this issue was just mostly exposition and setup. I believe though that this current arc right now is really just sort of trying to set up a whole Batwoman's team versus Batman's team final arc, and that's basically how James Tynion IV is going to end his run on Detective Comics. So at best, I would say this issue is average. Moon Knight number 193. Mark Spector figures out how he can use his connection to Khonshu to defeat the Sun King, and that's basically what happens. Moon Knight defeats the Sun King. It is kind of entertaining how Mark figures it out. Like in his mind, you see his alternate personalities talking to Khonshu about it, and they figure out that they can defeat the Sun King with the quote-unquote power of crazy, which the way they just called it that was really funny. There is like a sweet moment though at the beginning of the issue where we see Mark Spector's daughter, who he had with his former girlfriend Marlene. She's actually like on her bedside praying like a little kid to God, except she's praying to Khonshu to keep her father safe, which was kind of adorable. You know, I gotta admit, Moon Knight, it's not really the best comic that I'd recommend, but it is very entertaining, and I think it's something that, and this arc was pretty average, but it was still entertaining nonetheless, and I thought it was pretty good. Right, next up we have Flash number 43. Flash has to deal with Grodd controlling the rest of the Flash family with the Speed Force. Fortunately, Barry comes up with a plan to use Grodd's lightning rod to take away Grodd's Speed Force power and also cure the gorilla of whatever terminal disease he had, which I believe was established during the New 52, which I also completely forgot about until he brought it up again. However, when Grodd turns off his lightning rod, it unleashes the full power of the Speed Force storm that's been gathering over Central City. Except unlike the first Speed Force storm that we saw at the beginning of Rebirth, this one is powered by the negative Speed Force. So we have no idea what it's going to do to the city, and that's where the issue ends. When Barry lost his speed during this arc, he made some very questionable choices in order to get it back. Starting with his alliance with Godspeed. Also, he started to become more obsessed about getting his speed back. But this issue really started to bring back what we love about Barry Allen. And during this issue, as he's being attacked by all the people that share his speed, use Flash in their name, except Godspeed, Barry tells Grodd that the reason he doesn't fight them is because they're his family, and he will not raise his hand against his family. That was a really great Barry Allen moment. It reminded me what was great about the character, and for the past during my review of the last issue, I even said Barry seemed very off, but this moment kind of brought him back, which was nice. We still have one more issue left of this arc, but it was such a fantastic moment for his character that I really liked this issue a lot, and I've been really enjoying the Flash title since Rebirth began. And now for the comic that technically didn't come out this week, came out last week, but I didn't get it until now. Archie number 29. With no date to the dance, Archie decides to be the musical entertainment for the evening. Unfortunately, he can't find his guitar, so he has to go all over Riverdale trying to find it. Meanwhile, Reggie Mantle, Riverdale's own resident douchebag, gets ready to reveal the truth about the Blossom twins' paternity at the dance and stuff. Meanwhile, while Cheryl and Jason Blossom go and confront their mother about who their biological father is, they find out he was a guy named Eddie Shears. But just as Mrs. Blossom is explaining this to them, Eddie Shears has escaped from prison. And that's where the issue ends. Okay, I don't talk about this book enough on my usual vids, but I really love the new Archie's title. First of all, what drove me to it was a lot of positive feedback about it. Then I found out Mark Waid was writing it, and he's one of my favorite comic book writers, so I figured, why not? It's very much a modern Archie update, and that the characters do feel really relatable and real, which is nice. I will say this though, even though it is most of the time more lighthearted than the TV show Riverdale, this whole arc involving the real father of the Blossom twins does kind of feel like we're sort of entering into Riverdale territory. But but nevertheless, Archie is a fantastic title. I always look forward to this when it comes out every month, and it's also something nice to have on my pull list because every other comic I have is a superhero comic. So this being on there definitely gives me a little variety. Champions number 18. Big changes happened in this issue. First of all, Syntho Viv, who was basically the recreated synthezoid Vivian that Vision created, basically was destroyed in last issue, and her mind even though Vision was able to repair her synthoid body, her mind was completely wiped. So this gives original Viv, who up to this point has been human, the idea to transfer her consciousness into the synthoid body, because even though it was interesting being human, she still prefers being a synthoid. It wasn't truly her. And of course, right when Viv gets back to her standard form, the team decides to throw a little celebration. And during the celebration, Cyclops pulls Miss Marvel aside and tells her that he's quitting the team. However, it's not really a sad occasion, because even though Cyclops is leaving, the Champions do have several more members added to their ranks, which is nice. And also, Miss Marvel kind of reflects on what happened to them, on like what happened since they founded the team, and how they pretty much went from just being heroes that helped back to being a standard superhero team on top of their original mission. And it's a nice little moment of reflection for them. Alright, this is the last issue that is done by Mark Waid and Humberto Ramos. I am really going to miss this team because they made Champions one of my favorite Marvel titles, every month. I really love this series. It was such a great concept, and when I was reading the app, and this issue also has like an afterword by Humberto and Mark, and when I was reading Mark Waid's portion, he mentions how Scott Summers is one of his favorite characters, and as I was reading it, I kind of came to the realization that this series probably had the best Scott Summers stories in years. I mean, to me that was impressive, and honestly, since it looks like Mark Waid is staying at Marvel for a little while longer, I really hope that at some point he gets an idea to pitch a solo Cyclops series to Marvel and they let him write it, because I would really love that title a lot. And a solo Cyclops series does sell. They had one a few years ago when Cyclops was in space, and I loved it. A lot of people did, and I think they should bring it back with Mark Waid as the writer. That is how you make Scott Summers great again. Okay, that was a bad choice of words, but nevertheless, Champions number 18, fantastic finale. I'm going to miss this creative team a lot, but I'm still going to keep reading Champions because I like a lot of the characters too. Speaking of finale issues, here's another one. Jessica Jones, number 18, the final Jessica Jones story by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos. After dealing with the Purple Man during the last arc and he's gone for good, Jessica gets back to business as usual, which for her is being a private investigator for some more superhuman type cases. And for her new case, she has to find D-list supervillain, the Armadillo. I really like this issue a lot. It was very well written. It's a nice self-contained story that kind of goes back to Jessica Jones' roots as a private eye. It shows like even though Jessica has recently gotten involved in more superheroic titles, that she can still be, at her core, she was still envisioned as a private eye character, and Bendis and Gaydos really showed it. And I know that at the beginning of this review, I did not like Iron Man. I criticized Bendis' writing on Iron Man, but for this, I really loved his work on Jessica Jones. It was terrific character writing. He's got great dialogue. Honestly, if anyone asked me what my favorite Brian Michael Bendis title was, I would probably say Alias and Jessica Jones. Overall, this was a very fantastic issue, an impressive finale. If you want to know what I thought more about this issue, I will have a written review on themarvelreport.com if you want to check that out. A link to the site is in the description below. Next up, Terrifics number 2. After viewing Tom Strong's energy beacon, it inadvertently awakens the giant monster that the 4 heroes are currently on in the dark matter multiverse. However, the heroes quickly are able to retrieve the beacon and quickly escape back into the regular universe just in time. However, when they come back, Phantom Girl, who, by the way, is not the Legion's Phantom Girl, her name is Linya. She returns from her phantom form to her physical form. However, when she does it, she discovers that any object she makes physical contact with disintegrates. Obviously, that's obviously some sort of consequence from being in the dark multiverse for an extended period of time. Of course, she switches back to her intangible form. Then Mr. Terrific announced that he's going to take the beacon and study it by himself. However, when Mr. Terrific gets in his ship and leaves Stag Industries, he suddenly discovers that he's being pulled back there, and that something affected the heroes from the dark multiverse that allows them not to be more than a couple of feet away from each other. Some force keeps bringing them physically back together. First off, I really like the use of the Tom Strong character. I've never read that character before. I've heard bits and pieces about it, but I've never read a Tom Strong comic, so I like that element in this story. Also, I really liked how the trip into the dark multiverse keeps the team together literally. I mean, usually there's always something that when you see a new team book written, there's always something that keeps the heroes together. In this case, there is literally something that has to keep them together, which is fun. And also, I do like the interesting situation behind Phantom Girl, because it feels like once this whole Tom Strong mystery is concluded, we could be looking at another arc where Mr. Terrific tries to fix Phantom Girl, and when he does, that's going to involve the 4 of them heading off to Phantom Girl's home planet. But yeah, Terrifics so far has been an amazing story. I really love this title a lot. It's definitely something new from DC's putting out. It's written by Jeff Lemire, which is also cool, so if you have the chance, it's only on issue 2, so if you can, get issue 1 and get issue 2 and start reading this book because it is fantastic. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 25, the start of Shattered Grid. First off, let me just say that if you do get number 25, it will come polybagged. Basically the reason why is because on the cover you can get one of the 6 Mighty Morphin Ranger helmets. As you can see, I got Billy. Alright, so the issue opens up with the Time Force Power Rangers dealing with time fracture, and also Lord Drakon. And unfortunately during the battle, the Rangers are all killed off except for the pink Time Force Ranger, Jen, who manages to time travel away. Back in the present, the Rangers find out about Lord Drakon's escape, and they start to prepare, going over all the things that they know about him. However, Tommy and Kimberly decide to take the evening off and enjoy some time together. But where is Lord Drakon, you ask? Well, he's met with Ninjar, who hopes to help restore his powers. And Drakon is able to get most of his powers back, but not all of them. This leads to Drakon stealing the green Chaos Crystal from the Power Rangers Command Center. After Tommy and Kimberly decided to split off after their little date, where Tommy tried to kiss Kimberly, but she rejected him, they go their separate ways. And when Tommy goes down an alley, he gets attacked by Lord Drakon, who stabs him with the green Chaos Crystal. Fortunately, Kimberly arrives just in time to fight Drakon, and so does Jen. Both Pink Rangers fight Drakon, but unfortunately he gets away, and Tommy is fatally wounded. And that is where the issue ends. Okay, first off, even though this comic is set in a different continuity, I don't think they're going to kill Tommy off. That's obviously just for shock value. Also, Shattered Grid has been pretty much built up to be one hell of a story, so I don't think they're going to have Tommy Oliver sitting this out. Also, I really love the way that they used the Time Force Rangers in the opening of this issue. There really was a nice silhouette of Lord Drakon, like a larger form, that really does kind of give you the impression that somehow Drakon is reaching across all of the different versions of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And of course, since this means that Lord Drakon is messing with time, it makes perfect sense that the first Rangers to notice would be the ones that are all about time travel. So far, just by this one issue, Shattered Grid has a very fantastic opening. If you are a Power Rangers fan, I highly recommend that you start reading the story arc now. Now let's talk about Dark Knight's Metal number 6. Wonder Woman manages to save Batman and Superman from the Forge, and the trio discover the 10th metal. Batman then teams up with the most unlikely person you could think of to fight the Batman Who Laughs. I don't really want to talk about this part of the story because of spoilers, but I will say that during their fight, Batman ends up telling his temporary partner, to be clear, we never speak of this. And long story, and just a quick summary: heroes defeat Barbatos and send him back to the dark multiverse and save the Earth. And also, there is an epilogue scene that leads directly into next month's Justice League No Justice, which is sort of a mini-series by Scott Snyder, which will also, I think, lead into his Justice League run, which starts in June. This was an epic conclusion to a really awesome event. Dark Knight's Metal was a non-stop thrill ride. It had a bunch of cool stuff, a lot of Easter eggs to a lot of old DC Universe stuff. Honestly, if you've read any Batman title by Scott Snyder, and if it was Detective Comics, Batman, All-Star Batman, then you need to read this series. It is fun, it's great, and also I think Justice League No Justice comes out next month. And if you're going to check out Scott Snyder's Justice League run, which will start in June, I highly recommend that you read Metal first. And also, I was initially skeptical about whether or not I should get Justice League No Justice, but after reading this conclusion, I decided I'm going to get it. Okay, now it's time for my pick of the week, and I'm telling you that right now because I will get into some minor spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, just skip ahead. My pick of the week is Doomsday Clock number 4. The second Rorschach's origins are revealed. His real name is Reggie Long, and he is the son of Dr. Malcolm Long, who, if you've read Watchmen, you know that he was Rorschach's prison psychiatrist while he was arrested. We learned that Reggie did arrive to Manhattan to try to get to his parents right before Vidic's monster teleported into the city, but unfortunately he was just on the edge, and while physically he was unharmed, it left him with a large amount of psychological trauma. Reggie was then sent to a mental home where he met and befriended Byron Lewis, aka Mothman, former Minuteman. Currently in the DC universe, Reggie is basically where we last saw him. Batman left him locked up in Arkham Asylum, and that's where he is now, under the alias John Doe. And Batman has been posing as a psychiatrist in order to visit Reggie weekly in order to figure out what he knows and what exactly is going on with Dr. Manhattan. Another inmate named Jane Doe helps Reggie break out of Arkham Asylum when the issue's over. Oh yeah, and also the really intriguing thing happened on the final page where we see the guards running through Arkham and there's an empty cell. In this empty cell, we see a photo floating down, and if you look closely, it's a photo of John Osterman, pre-Dr. Manhattan, with Janie Slater. And if you remember Watchmen, that photo was a big deal. First off, one of the earliest things set up in the Rebirth one-shot is finally starting to pay off with this issue. Also, we finally get some more info about some of the new Watchmen characters, which are great. And I also liked how Jeff Johns used one of the overlooked Minutemen into this new character's origin. I thought that was very nice, and it was a good callback, because all we knew about Mothman was he was in the Minutemen, but then he was institutionalized, and that was it. This issue really expanded on that character's history, which was great. I mean, this story is very fascinating, and also I like the way that Batman didn't just leave Rorschach in Arkham Asylum and just left him there. He's pretty much been probing his mind, obviously realizing that Dr. Manhattan is a threat, but he doesn't fully trust, but he believes Rorschach is too mentally unstable to be playing an active role, so he has to talk to him through posing as an Arkham Asylum psychiatrist. But man, this series has been very entertaining, very enjoyable. There is a lot going on here. I mean, if you've been hooked on Rebirth since the very beginning like I am, then you definitely want to read this. Unfortunately though, this title is now bi-monthly, so the next issue isn't coming out until the end of May, which sucks, but it's still a fantastic series, and I highly recommend you pick it up if you're a DC or a Watchmen fan. Okay, that's it for my weekly comic book review. Thank you again for watching. Remember, stay subscribed and notified if you want to know when I'm posting another video. Also, you can follow me on my Twitter and my Instagram. Links are in the description below. Thanks again for watching. See you later.